Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive with yours truly. Today we're going to be looking at a question that I think we all kind of ask ourselves, and that's, can setbacks actually make us stronger? We've got a bunch of articles and research all about resilience, and I think there are some seriously interesting points here that we can all learn from.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question to explore. It might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but there's a ton of research out there that shows that even though setbacks are difficult, they can actually be really valuable for us.
Yeah, I mean, the sources we have definitely all seem to agree that, setbacks are going to happen to everyone. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when they're going to happen.
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is, are they just random roadblocks that we encounter, or is there something more to them?
Well, what's interesting is that setbacks, even though they might feel like a detour, they can actually lead us in directions that we never would have expected, and we might even discover things that we never would have if we hadn't had that setback.
Okay, I like that. So, like, imagine you're on a road trip, right?
Yeah.
And you encounter a detour. So, yeah, it might delay you a bit, but it could also lead you to some amazing hidden spot that you would have totally missed if you'd seen on the main road.
Exactly.
I love that analogy. So it's like those detours can actually like enrich the whole journey, even though they weren't part of the original plan. But then how do we go from being frustrated by those detours to actually embracing them as opportunities?
Well, that's where resilience comes in.
Okay.
Resilience is that inner strength that lets us come back from adversity and actually even thrive when we're faced with all these challenges. And the research is pretty clear here. It's not about never feeling the negative impacts of the setbacks, but it's about developing those skills that help you get through it.
So resilient people don't just kind of grit their teeth and bear it. They actually have a different way of thinking about these setbacks that helps them turn those experiences into something good.
Exactly. You can learn to see setbacks as not permanent, but temporary and specific to one situation. It's about developing what they call learned optimism.
Okay, now that's something I want to know more about learned optimism. Does that mean we can actually train ourselves to be more optimistic? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area of research. It's based on the idea that we can actually reframe negative experiences and then focus on what positive things might come out of them. So instead of getting stuck in what went wrong, you start to ask, what can I learn from this? And how can I use this to grow? And what opportunities might be hidden within this challenge?
So it's not about pretending everything's perfect, but more about focusing on how we can grow from these experiences even when they're difficult.
Exactly. And it connects directly to the idea of a growth mindset, which is the belief that our abilities are not fixed, but can be developed with enough effort. So you don't see a setback as proof of your limitations, but you see it as a chance to learn new skills and really expand your abilities. It's a more powerful way to deal with challenges.
It's funny because when we hear about people who've done these amazing things, we usually only hear about their successes. We don't often hear about the hard times they went through to get there.
Right.
Like, the research mentioned some great examples, like J.K. Rowling being rejected over and over before she finally found a publisher for Harry Potter, and Stephen Hawking making these huge contributions to physics while he was dealing with a really serious disease. And then there's Oprah Winfrey, who came from a really difficult childhood and went on to become like this huge media star and philanthropist.
Yeah, those are all incredibly powerful examples. And what I find so inspiring about all of them is they didn't let these setbacks stop them. They used their inner resilience to keep going even when things were hard.
It's easy to think, well, they're special. They have some kind of superpower to get past tough times. But what I'm hearing is that it's not about being special. It's about tapping into this resilience that we all have inside us.
That's right. It's about knowing that each of us has that potential for resilience. It's not about never having setbacks. It's about knowing how to deal with them and then turning them into something that helps you grow.
This is making me think about all those inspirational quotes you see all the time. The ones people share online or you see on posters or even in fortune cookies. It's easy to just kind of skim past them. But there are a few of the sources that are especially relevant to our topic here. Like Nelson Mandela said, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." And there's that one by Confucius. "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail."
Those quotes really do capture the essence of resilience, don't they? It's not about pretending that failure doesn't happen or that it doesn't hurt. It's about having that courage to keep going and learn from your mistakes.
And speaking of getting back up after a fall, one of the sources tells this story about Walt Disney. Before he created Mickey Mouse and the whole Disney empire, he actually went bankrupt with his very first animation company. Yeah, can you believe that?
That's right. It just goes to show you that even what seems like a total disaster doesn't have to determine your future. He could have easily given up on his dreams after something like that, but he decided to learn from his mistakes instead, and then he adapted and kept going. And then ultimately, that experience probably helped him succeed later on.
So we've talked about a lot already. We talked about how setbacks, while they can't be avoided, can be seen as opportunities. We talked about learned optimism and having a growth mindset. We've heard about people who overcame huge obstacles, and we've heard some timeless wisdom from inspiring people. But now let's talk about how this applies to us. How do we take all this great information and actually use it in our own lives? How do we go from understanding it to actually using it to deal with those setbacks that we all face?
I think that's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to know about these concepts, but it's a whole different thing to actually use them in real life. But luckily, the research gives us a lot of practical strategies to help us close that gap between knowing and doing.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's dive into those strategies and learn how to turn those setbacks into stepping stones.
One of the most powerful things you can do is embrace failure as a learning opportunity. So instead of seeing a setback as like the end of the road, you can really analyze it, and see what went wrong.
Yeah,
And then you can adjust how you approach things the next time.
it's like they say fail forward, right? But I think a lot of people struggle with this. When something bad happens, you just kind of want to avoid thinking about it?
Yeah.
How do we make ourselves analyze these experiences even when it's uncomfortable?
It's not easy, that's for sure. But think about it like this. Every setback, even the really bad ones, has valuable information in it. It's kind of like a feedback loop that can help you get better at what you do and improve your strategies.
Okay, I see what you mean. Thinking of it as data instead of a failure makes it a little less scary.
Yeah.
But do you have any practical tips for how to actually do this? Like, what would this look like in real life?
Sure. Let's say you're working on a project at work and you put in a lot of effort, but then it gets rejected by the client. Instead of just feeling super disappointed and frustrated, you can take some time to really think about what happened. Ask yourself, what did the client actually want? And did I understand their needs? And was there a communication problem? And were there things outside of my control that affected the outcome? When you break it down like that, you can usually pinpoint some areas where you can improve your approach for next time.
Okay, so you turn that failure into a bunch of questions that can give you some valuable feedback. I like that. It feels a lot better than just being bummed out about it.
And remember, we talked about having a growth mindset before. This is a perfect example of that. Instead of thinking, I'm just not good at this, you can think, okay, I'm still learning, and this experience showed me what I can improve.
I'm with you. Analyze the setback, get that feedback, and use it to help yourself grow. What other tools do we have in this resilience toolkit?
This next one might sound really simple, but people often forget about it when they're feeling overwhelmed. And that's to reach out for support and guidance. When you're going through a tough time, it can be really helpful to talk to people you trust, like your friends, family mentors, or even a therapist. Anyone who can just listen to you, offer a new perspective, or be there for you.
Sometimes all you need is to talk it out. It's that
Yeah.
feeling that you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
Like other people have gone through hard times too, and they got through it.
Exactly. And a lot of times just talking about how you're feeling can actually help you understand what's going on and see things more clearly.
Yeah.
Plus, the people you trust can sometimes see things that you might not have thought of.
This next one is something I know I need to work on practicing self-care. It's so easy to forget about self-care when you're stressed or dealing with a setback. But I know it's important to stay positive and have the energy to deal with the challenges.
Yeah, you're right. Self-care is not something extra. It's something you need to do, especially when things are tough.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy or take a lot of time. It's really about doing things that make you feel good in your mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
It could be going for a walk in nature, listening to your favorite music, reading a good book, taking a hot bath, meditating, or spending time with the people you love.
So it's like hitting the reset button
Yeah.
so you can face the challenge with more energy and focus, right?
That's it. And here's another one that can really help focus on the present moment. When you're dealing with a setback, it's so easy to get caught up in worrying about the future or thinking about the past. But those are things you can't control, and they just make you more stressed.
Ugh, I do that all the time. My mind goes crazy with all these what-if questions that never even happen.
Yeah, that happens to a lot of people. The research shows that practicing mindfulness, like meditation or deep breathing, can help you stay focused on the present moment and the things you can control.
So instead of getting lost in all those worries, we can try to bring our attention to right now and focus on taking things one step at a time.
Exactly. Bringing your attention to the present moment helps you feel more in control and more clear-headed, which is super important when dealing with setbacks.
Okay, this is all making sense. We got some great practical tools here. But here's something I think a lot of people wonder about. Can setbacks actually make us better in the long run?
That's a great question, and it's something that comes up a lot in the research. And the short answer is yes. Setbacks can actually help us grow and become better people, even though they're often painful and difficult.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
Hmm.
How can something that feels so negative actually help us grow in a positive way?
Well, one of the biggest ways is that setbacks can make us more self-aware. When we face challenges, we're forced to look at our strengths, our weaknesses, our values, and what we believe in. This process of reflecting on ourselves can help us understand who we really are and what's truly important to us.
So it's like this wake-up call that helps us see ourselves more clearly.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you even find out that you have strengths and talents you never knew you had.
That's amazing. It's like setbacks can help us unlock this hidden potential we didn't know we had.
Absolutely. They can also make you better at solving problems. When you face a challenge, you have to think outside the box and come up with creative solutions. This process strengthens your ability to analyze situations. Look at your options and make good decisions, which are all skills that help you in every part of your life.
It's like working out your problem-solving muscles. Makes you more resourceful and adaptable for whatever comes next.
I like that. And every time you overcome a setback, you're building up your resilience, which means you're better equipped to handle future challenges. You start to feel more confident knowing that you can bounce back from difficult situations.
Like each setback adds to our resilience bank account, right? Making us more emotionally wealthy over time.
I love that analogy. But there's even more. Setbacks can also make you more empathetic and compassionate towards others. When you go through tough times yourself, you understand what it's like for other people who are struggling. This can help you be more understanding, supportive, and compassionate.
It's like those setbacks make us a little less self-centered and help us connect with other people on a deeper level.
Exactly. And finally, setbacks can even lead to what's called post-traumatic growth. This might sound strange, but it means that going through something difficult can actually lead you to find new meaning and purpose in life, develop stronger relationships, feel more grateful for what you have, and even grow spiritually.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So even though setbacks can be really hard, they can also be the starting point for some major positive changes in our lives if we have the right mindset.
That's right. It's about realizing that even the most difficult experiences can help us grow and discover new opportunities.
Okay, we've covered so much. We talked about how important resilience is, and we heard inspiring stories and practical advice for turning setbacks into opportunities. We even learned about the surprising ways setbacks can help us improve. But let's be honest, staying positive during a setback is really hard. What advice do you have for keeping a positive mindset when things are tough?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Staying positive when things are hard isn't about pretending everything's okay or ignoring how you feel. It's about making a conscious choice to focus on the things you can control and using strategies that help you feel hopeful and see the bigger picture.
So what are some things we can do to develop a more positive mindset when we're in the middle of a challenge?
One of the easiest and most powerful things you can do is practice gratitude. Even when things are really rough, there's always something to be thankful for, like your health, with the people you love, having a roof over your head, a beautiful sunset, a kind stranger, a delicious meal, or even just a quiet moment. When you focus on what you do have instead of what you don't, it can really change your perspective and make you feel better.
I love that. It's like gratitude is a muscle you can strengthen. And the more you use it, the easier it gets to find the good even when things are tough.
Exactly. Another important strategy is to question those negative thoughts. When we're going through a hard time, it's easy to start criticizing ourselves, putting ourselves down, and focusing on our flaws. But this kind of thinking just makes it harder to bounce back.
It's like we become our own worst enemies. Instead of
Ah,
supporting ourselves, we just beat ourselves up.
it's so important to be aware of that inner critic and challenge those negative thoughts. Be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend who's going through a hard time. Be understanding and supportive.
So how do we actually challenge those negative thoughts? Do we just try to think positive thoughts instead?
Not necessarily. It's not about forcing yourself to feel happy or pretending things aren't difficult. It's about really looking at those negative thoughts and asking yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it doing me any good? Is it based on facts or am I just scared? If the thought isn't helpful, then you need to challenge it. Find evidence that proves it wrong.
So we're like detectives trying to figure out if our thoughts are true or not.
Exactly. And once you've challenged those unhelpful thoughts, you can start focusing on finding solutions. Instead of dwelling on the problem, ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do right now to start fixing this?
I like that. It breaks the problem down into smaller steps so it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
And it helps you shift from feeling like a victim to feeling like you can actually do something about it.
What else can we do to stay positive? I feel like we're on a roll here.
Being around positive people is really important. The people you spend your time with have a big impact on how you think and feel. Look for people who are supportive, encouraging, and believe in you. Their positive energy can rub off on you and help you stay motivated when you're feeling down.
There's that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly. You need to choose your friends wisely, especially when you're going through a hard time.
Okay, so we have gratitude, challenging negative thoughts, focusing on solutions, and surrounding ourselves with positive people. What else?
This one might seem a little weird, but it's actually really important. You need to acknowledge and validate your emotions. When you're facing a setback, it's normal to feel disappointed, frustrated, sad, or even angry. Trying to bottle up these emotions will only make them stronger.
So it's not about pretending to be happy all the time. It's about letting ourselves feel the full range of human emotions, even the difficult ones.
Exactly. Being aware of your emotions is important for dealing with the situation and moving on. It's about saying to yourself, it's okay to feel this way. It's a tough situation and it's normal to have these feelings.
Okay, I love all this advice. It's so practical and realistic. But before we wrap up this part, I want to talk about something that I think trips a lot of people up, the common mistakes people make when dealing with setbacks. What are some of the traps we should watch out for?
Yeah, there are definitely some common traps that can keep you from really learning and growing from those setbacks. One of the biggest ones is dwelling on the past.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. It's so easy to keep replaying those past events in your head, especially the ones that were painful or where we messed up.
It's normal to want to think about what happened and analyze it, but if you're constantly thinking about what you should have done differently, it just keeps you stuck in that negative cycle of regret. It's like trying to drive a car while you're only looking in the rearview mirror. You might miss what's right in front of you.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. So how do we stop dwelling on the past? How do we shift our focus to what's ahead of us?
It starts with recognizing your mistakes and learning from them, but then you have to make a choice to let go of the past. Forgiving yourself and others is a really powerful way to move on. You have to realize that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time, and you have to show that same compassion to other people who might have been involved.
It's like saying to yourself, okay, I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. I can learn from it and move on.
Exactly. Another common trap is all that negative self-talk. When we're dealing with a setback, it's so easy to criticize ourselves, put ourselves down, and focus on all our weaknesses. This just destroys your confidence and makes it way harder to bounce back.
It's like we become our own worst enemy.
Right.
Instead of being kind to ourselves, we just keep putting ourselves down.
It's so important to recognize that inner critic and then challenge those negative thoughts. Practice being kind to yourself. Talk to yourself the same way you'd talk to a friend who is going through a tough time. Offer yourself some understanding and support.
What other traps should we be looking out for?
Giving up too easily is a big one. Setbacks can be really discouraging, and it's tempting to just give up when things get tough. But remember, resilience is about sticking with it, even when you don't feel like it. You're not always going to move forward in a straight line. There will be ups and downs, but as long as you keep moving, even if it's just a tiny step at a time, you're making progress.
So it's about recognizing those small victories and keeping your eyes on the big picture, knowing that success doesn't usually come easy.
That's right. Another trap is avoiding challenges altogether. It's normal to want to stay in your comfort zone, but you only really grow when you push yourself beyond those limits. Taking on those challenges, even if they seem scary, can lead to some amazing personal growth.
Like they say, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And one more trap that people often fall into is blaming themselves for everything without taking responsibility. It's important to own your actions and learn from your mistakes, but you also have to avoid blaming yourself too much. Remember that a lot of times setbacks happen because of things outside of your control.
So it's about finding that balance between taking responsibility for your part and recognizing that sometimes things happen that aren't your fault.
Exactly. It's about being honest with yourself, but also being kind to yourself.
This has been such a fascinating and insightful deep dive. We've learned so much about resilience and how to handle setbacks. We've heard inspiring stories and practical advice, and we even discovered that setbacks can actually make us better. It's like we've created this awesome toolkit for dealing with challenges and coming out stronger on the other side.
Absolutely. I hope everyone listening feels ready to take these tools and use them in their own lives.
You know, as we've been talking, I keep thinking about how powerful our perspective is. The way we choose to see a setback can make a huge difference in how we experience it.
Yeah, that's so important. It's not about pretending that things aren't hard. It's about understanding that even in those difficult times, there's an opportunity to learn and grow.
There's that saying, the obstacle is the way. Sometimes the things that seem like roadblocks are actually chances to learn new skills and become stronger and wiser.
And just changing the way you think about setbacks from seeing them as totally negative to seeing them as chances to grow can be so powerful.
It's so true. To everyone listening out there, I hope this deep dive has given you a new way of looking at setbacks. Remember, you're not alone in this. We all face challenges, but it is up to us to choose how we respond to them.
And by building resilience and learning from our experiences and using all the strategies we talked about today, you can turn those setbacks into stepping stones to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into resilience. It's been an amazing journey, and I hope you feel inspired and ready to face your own challenges with courage, wisdom, and hope. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.